The Serpent in Eden. The serpent in Eden is the first adversary in the biblical narrative, noted for using deception rather than force. It questions God's command to Eve, planting doubt by asking, "Has God indeed said?" This provokes uncertainty. It then denies the consequence of death after eating the forbidden fruit, asserting, "You will not surely die." Finally, it appeals to pride and desire, suggesting that eating the fruit will make humans like God, knowledgeable about good and evil. This three-step tactic, doubt, denial, and pride, sets a precedent for temptation throughout Scripture. The serpent's punishment, crawling on its belly, symbolizes humiliation and degradation. It represents the introduction of sin into humanity, acting as a vessel for Satan and marking the start of mankind's struggle with evil. Cain. Cain is the first human villain in the Bible, known for committing the first murder. He and his brother Abel both bring offerings to God, but only Abel's is accepted. Out of jealousy, Cain's anger grows, and despite God's warning that sin is waiting to control him and urging him to master it, Cain lures Abel into a field and kills him. When God asks Cain about Abel's whereabouts, Cain replies, "Am I my brother's keeper?" showing a refusal to take responsibility. God punishes Cain by cursing him to a life of wandering and marks him to protect him from being killed by others. Cain's story reveals how unchecked jealousy and pride can lead to violence and how evading accountability deepens evil. Pharaoh of Exodus. The Pharaoh during the time of Moses symbolizes absolute tyranny and defiance against divine authority. When Moses demands the release of the Israelite slaves, Pharaoh refuses and intensifies their suffering by increasing their workload. Despite witnessing a series of devastating plagues, including the Nile turning to blood, infestations of frogs and locusts, darkness over the land, and the death of Egypt's firstborn sons, Pharaoh hardens his heart repeatedly, refusing to submit. His stubborn pride culminates in the tragic death of his own son, yet he still pursues the Israelites to the Red Sea, where his army is drowned. Pharaoh's story is a warning about rulers who elevate themselves above God's authority, relying on earthly power to resist justice, and illustrates how unchecked arrogance leads to inevitable collapse and divine judgment. Balaam was a non-Israelite prophet approached by Balak, king of Moab, to curse the Israelites. Though God warned Balaam not to curse his people, Balaam entertained Balak's offers, driven by greed and ambition. On his journey, Balaam's donkey saw an angel blocking the path and refused to proceed, but Balaam, blind to the angel, beat the donkey until God enabled it to speak. Eventually, Balaam saw the angel and was commanded to bless Israel instead of cursing them. Later, Balaam advised Moab to lead Israel into sin through idolatry and immorality, bringing judgment. His life shows how spiritual gifts can be corrupted by personal ambition. Delilah. Delilah appears in the Book of Judges as the woman who betrays Samson, Israel's divinely chosen judge. The Philistine rulers bribed her with money to uncover the secret of Samson's extraordinary strength. Delilah persistently entices Samson, feigning love and trust while pressuring him daily. After 3 false answers, Samson finally reveals that his strength lies in his Nazirite vow, symbolized by his uncut hair. Delilah immediately tells the Philistines, who shave his hair while he sleeps, leading to his capture. Her betrayal exemplifies how manipulation, misplaced trust, and personal gain can bring down even those with divine protection. Goliath. Goliath was a giant Philistine warrior standing about 9 feet tall, heavily armored and armed with a massive spear. For 40 days he repeatedly challenged Israel's army to single combat, mocking them and defying the God of Israel. His size and strength instilled fear and paralysis among the soldiers. When David, a young shepherd boy with faith in God, confronted him armed only with a sling and stone, he defeated Goliath by striking him in the forehead. Goliath's defeat symbolizes how arrogance and intimidation, no matter how overwhelming, collapse before courage rooted in divine authority. King Ahab. King Ahab of Israel is known for his spiritual weakness, allowing idolatry to flourish under his reign. Married to Jezebel, a Baal worshipper, Ahab permitted the construction of altars to Baal and persecuted God's prophets. Although he occasionally recognized God's power, he never fully abandoned idolatry. His selfishness is evident when he coveted Naboth's vineyard and enabled Jezebel's plot to have Naboth falsely accused and executed to seize the land. Ahab's reign warns of how weak, compromised leadership can open the door to greater corruption and injustice. Jezebel, wife of King Ahab, is infamous for promoting Baal and Asherah worship in Israel. She relentlessly persecuted God's prophets, ordering their execution in attempts to eradicate their influence. Jezebel orchestrated a false accusation and trial against Naboth to seize his vineyard for Ahab. Her manipulative political control corrupted Israel's justice system and spread idolatry. Her violent death, prophesied by Elijah, came as divine judgment for her ruthless wickedness. Jezebel's legacy illustrates how evil can spread through manipulation, political power, and the corruption of justice. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar II was the powerful king of Babylon who conquered Jerusalem and initiated the Babylonian exile of the Jewish people. Known for his military might and grand architectural projects, he demanded worship of a golden statue, threatening death by fire to dissenters. His pride led him to claim Babylon's majesty was by his own power. As divine judgment, God humbled Nebuchadnezzar by causing him to live like an animal for 7 years in madness until he recognized God's sovereignty. His story illustrates the dangers of unchecked pride and the ultimate supremacy of God over human rulers. Haman. Haman was a high-ranking Persian official infamous for his genocidal plot against the Jewish people during King Ahasuerus' reign. His hatred began with Mordecai, a Jew who refused to bow to him, shocking Haman's pride and sense of dignity. Instead of addressing a personal grievance, Haman schemed to exterminate the entire Jewish population in the Persian Empire. He manipulated the king with false accusations that the Jews did not obey royal laws, convincing Ahasuerus to issue a decree for their destruction. Haman built gallows specifically to hang Mordecai. His evil came to an end when Queen Esther exposed his plot, leading to his execution on the very gallows he prepared, highlighting the downfall of malicious intent. King Herod the Great. Herod the Great, ruler of Judea under Roman authority, is infamous for his extreme paranoia and brutality. Upon learning from the Magi about the birth of a prophesied king of the Jews, Herod responded not with investigation, but with outright violence. He ordered the massacre known as the Slaughter of the Innocents, killing all male children 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and its surrounding areas. This act reveals how fear of losing power can drive a ruler to commit atrocities against the most vulnerable. Herod's reign illustrates the deadly consequences of political insecurity and self-serving tyranny. Pontius Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea known for presiding over Jesus' trial. Though he publicly declared Jesus innocent, Pilate succumbed to pressure from Jewish leaders and an angry crowd, authorizing Jesus' crucifixion to maintain political stability. Pilate washed his hands symbolically to show he refused responsibility, yet he enacted an unjust execution. His role demonstrates that evil can arise from cowardice and compromise, where leaders prioritize personal safety and political expediency over truth and justice. Pilate's passivity made him complicit in a profound wrongdoing despite his own doubts. Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, is remembered as the ultimate betrayer. Despite witnessing Jesus' miracles and teachings personally, Judas chose to betray him to the authorities for 30 pieces of silver. He identified Jesus to soldiers with a kiss. A gesture of trust turned into treachery. Additionally, Judas managed the disciples' money bag and is suggested to have been influenced by greed. His life shows how proximity to truth and goodness does not guarantee loyalty and reveals the tragic reality that betrayal often comes from those closest to the light. Satan. Satan appears throughout the Bible as the ultimate adversary of God and humanity. In the book of Job, he acts as the accuser, challenging human faith by suggesting devotion to God is merely transactional. In the Gospels, Satan tempts Jesus in the wilderness, offering food, safety, and worldly power in exchange for worship. Revelation portrays him as the great dragon waging war against heaven before being cast down. Satan's power lies not in sheer force, but in deception, manipulation, and exploiting pride and fear. He permeates human history, working through individuals and systems to orchestrate rebellion against God, ensuring evil's persistence in the world. The Antichrist. The Antichrist, described mainly in the New Testament's book of Revelation, represents the final and ultimate embodiment of evil. He rises to global power, deceiving the world with false miracles and demanding worship. This figure combines traits from earlier villains: the serpent's deception, Nebuchadnezzar's arrogance, Herod's cruelty, and Jezebel's manipulation. His reign features intense persecution of God's faithful and demands absolute loyalty symbolized by the mark of the beast, conflating political, religious, and economic control. The Antichrist epitomizes humanity's final rebellion against divine authority, setting the stage for the ultimate confrontation in eschatological history. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more controversial scripture topics. Check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.